This week on Bravo Outsider.
He crosses one leg over the other too, so it looks like you're like always a millimeter away from seeing testicle hair.
He is one of the most intriguing people on this show just because he is such like an intense, I don't know, douchebag.
Still hope we see more of asshole Aristotle.
Hello and welcome to the Bravo Outsider podcast. It's our 100th episode. We're excited to have you. We're going to be talking about the Valley and maybe a little bit of special stuff. Dylan, what do we have planned here?
We might have a little treat out there for our very special presentation today. Bravo Outsider, 100 years, 100 memories. So after we talk about the Valley, we're going to each rank our top 5 favorite Bravo Outsider episodes from our first 100. We could include this one if we wanted to. That would be a fun twist at the end. So we'll each take turns counting up from 5 to 1 of our favorite episodes of Bravo Outsider that we've done. So that if you want to go digging in the crates, going into the archives and dusting off some old ones, we're going to point you in the right direction if you haven't heard them all.
I'll put links in the description of this episode so you can find them.
that. Put clips in too if you want to just make it a lot more of a headache for yourself to edit. I can help you out with that. I'll be like, gee, remember that time when roll clip.
Throw to the clips.
Yeah. Also, as another part of the celebrations, I thought it'd be fun that if we end things off with longtime listeners know that we always finish off a discussion of an episode by giving our 3 stars of the performers for that episode that we like the best. So I thought for our 100th episode, we should do our 3 stars out of all the performers of all the episodes we've covered in our 100 podcasts.
Yeah, and I got my stars locked and loaded. I'm very curious to see if they line up with you. So let's dive into the Valley first.
Let's do it.
Do you want to give a summary of what happened on this episode?
Okay, so preparations are still being made for the engagement trip to Hawaii. The secret engagement trip, still trying to keep Detective Dowdy off the case. The ring is picked up. The gecko is dropped off. We find out that Zach also knows that it's an engagement party, which is seems like a ticking time bomb. From there, we transition into a dudes meetup with our favorite guy, Scott, the guru of douchebags in the San Fernando Valley, helping the fellas work through their feelings and with utter bullshit. And that leads us into a dinner at El Coyote with the girls. We go from the guys to the girls, and there's a bit of a blow up between Janet and Nia. And after that, a little interlude where we get a bit of sports, and then we're headed off to Hawaii.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground on this episode. It feels like there's a
I
lot of time and space that's covered.
Yeah, I didn't even mention Jax getting stood up by Brittany for what was apparently supposed to be their first sit-down face-to-face since his release. But that happened too.
Yeah, totally. What stood out to you in terms of like themes or presentation on this episode?
It was definitely very interesting that we have like the guys' colloquium and then the girls' colloquium back to back. Aesthetically, definitely very different color schemes. Like the dudes is very tan, khaki, gray, muted greens kind of stuff. Everybody wearing t-shirts. And when we switch to the girls, they're at El Coyote. They're at a place with like bright yellows and reds, and everybody's dressed very colorfully. That kind of contrast between kind of quiet and loud is really there. The way that they express themselves too, the way that we see these kind of acceptable modes of expressing your emotions, whereas at the guys meet up with I don't know how to call it, therapy session, I guess. I don't want to use a word like therapy for whatever the hell Scott is doing. It's the beard. I get you mixed up. Just kidding. Scott. Classic. We're happy to have Scott back though, right? We love Scott. Just
for sure.
Him and his intense eye contact. Just
he is one of the most intriguing people on this show just because he is such like an intense, I don't know, douchebag.
Yeah.
Just like I can't get enough of him. Just like he's hinting at this like manosphere
Mhm.
toxic energy, and the way that he like brings it in with his like woo woo bullshit. You need to clear your list by putting your hand on another man's chest, and
Yeah.
it's just like it's so funny to me. It is like yeah, it's bizarre.
I love how he wants to be like the Brahmin of Barstool Bros for northern Los Angeles County, and I think he's amazing. What was I saying? That's like their way of expressing their emotions. That they're encouraged to express their emotions is all about like being like muted, and when you break down, it's like not being able to maintain eye contact, showing a bit of tears, showing a bit of emotion, and when we transition to the girls and all their bright colors, it's like their mode is just like being loud, being outgoing, and attacking each other too. So that was that as like the centerpiece of the episode. I thought that was a fun contrast.
Yeah, totally. I noticed that there was like we got an early scene of Danny and Nia meeting up with Zach and Benji. I noticed that the editors keyed in on Nia talking about her spray tan quite a bit, and talking about how she's worried about it melting off. I really like this because it aligned with what we're seeing from her in terms of her trying to protect the appearance of her relationship versus like what is actually underneath the surface. So I really like this as a kind of emblem of that idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't get too close to me. Don't touch me too much, because you'll rub off the way that I'm painted.
Yeah. There was also a lot of like keying in on food over the course of this episode. I don't really know what to make about this, but I thought it was interesting that we got a lot of eating, and we got like it opens on Kristen and Luke making quesadillas, and then we get the meal between Danny, Nia, Zach, and Benji. We don't get food at the Jesse therapy session, but then we do at El Coyote. I thought it was just interesting that it seemed very heavy here, and then leading up to, of course, the Jack's lunch, where we actually don't see the food that he orders. We just get it ending off with the waitress coming and asking if he would like a to-go box.
Yeah, I was confused by that too, because I was like she's got to pour his coffee and his Diet Pepsi in a styrofoam container, because he had no food, right? Unless like you suggested it arrived off screen and we never saw it.
I'm hungry, Bill.
You're ready on the soundboard tonight. This is.
Yeah,
it's about time. But also, now that you bring it up, we get so many shots of food in the early going when Kristen and Luke are in their little home, and they've been really selling this kind of domestic bliss angle for Kristen and Luke, and all these like close-ups of like food being mixed together in bowls like really seems to be part of their editorial strategy for showing that this is a comfortable, healthy home life that they're building together. You could continue that theme to Zach saying like, thank God Benji's here, because now he'll cook for me and I wouldn't cook otherwise. Like home cooking as this kind of this kind of synecdoche for domestic comfortability is comfort. I don't know why I added extra syllables. Is maybe one part of that too.
Yeah, totally. How about a quote? Were there any quotes here that stood out to you?
Lingering on the dude's therapy session, I really laughed when like Jesse invites the guys over to his place, and is it like, anybody want any rosewater spray? Psilocybin? No, anyone? Just like that's not water or beer. No, just straight to the woo woo bullshit. Just rosewater spray or psilocybin. Those are the two things that you're offered when you enter Jesse's place.
I love that. Yeah, he's offering the mushrooms, and his house is like, it reminds me of Alice in Wonderland and the tricky door that everyone struggles to get through.
The tricky door. We didn't talk about that last week, I don't think, but the door was great. I loved how they seeded that last week. They seeded the idea that everybody goes for the wrong door handles, because he has like door handles that are just for show or something, and that really pays off when Jax finally shows up, and everybody's been waiting for Jax to show up. It's been so built up, and then he shows up and he starts not being able to open the door because he's on the wrong handle. I thought that was a great payoff to the gag. And then we get that gag returns again this episode when, again, people are trying to turn the door handles like idiots.
In terms of the quotes that stood out to me, there was a conversation that we got between Janet and Brittany at the field day where they're talking about how it's weird when someone goes from being like family to being like a stranger. I think I talked about this last episode. It was a clip that I posted on Instagram, but I think the editors are doing such a good job of showing how complex the situation is for Brittany.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just continuing that through line here. We didn't really get a lot of Brittany on this episode. Like even the big scene that we've been waiting for between Jax and Brittany, we don't actually get that paying off here.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the editors are using what they have to really create a very compelling narrative for her.
Mm-hmm. Talking about the editors making some canny choices, I do really like at the end too, where, you know, the cliffhanger we're left with is Jesse's going to confront Aaron, B-Guy, which, quick note, I did find it really funny where earlier there's a confessional of Michelle where Michelle's like, Jesse won't play games if Aaron's there. Like, you sure about that? But I do like how at the end they show Jesse ironing his shirts while Zach and Benji are, you know, getting frisky in the shower next to him, like already setting up the idea that he's got like these little annoyances that are building up because he's sharing the presidential suite with the two lovers. And then as he's ironing the shirt, they keep doing these like double exposure, like crossfades into things that have annoyed him about Aaron and Michelle, just to sell this idea of that, because that's the kind of task you do where your mind just starts like turning, you know? So it really worked for me, this idea that he's like, as he's trying to focus on ironing his shirts, the cogs in his head keep turning and he keeps replaying these things that are pissing him off over and over again. I thought that was
just great. Sitting there like shaking his own Coke bottle, just like building up the pressure. The treatment of Jesse is really great at the end of this episode in Maui. I do think that they're doing a fantastic job of building the tension there, because also on the beach, there's a shot of like Aaron holding Michelle in his arms. And then we see the camera cut to Jesse, who's there like on a beached inner tube looking like so inferior. It's amazing.
Yeah, really funny that he's just sitting there in this like child's blow up tube, just getting pushed by the waves back onto the sand, like not even making it out into the water, just getting pushed back into the sands and just kind of flopped inside there, sunk into it. Really funny,
like flopping around on this like beach inner tube is like one of the least sexy things that you can do at the beach. Maybe second only to doing the doggy paddle.
Yeah that was really good. I love how they're building up that Jesse is feeling inferior and she's chewing on things in his mind and is therefore ready to go off the handle.
What other highlights do you have from this episode?
The field day felt kind of like a bit of an interlude that didn't really provide a whole lot, though. You know, you brought up a good point that it gives us kind of the only interesting Brittany moments. It did just kind of feel like a bit of an intermission to me, but I still find that stuff funny and fun. I really enjoyed how, like, when they announce that they're going to do tug of war, the guys on the purple team, like Jason and Jesse, are like, oh yeah, we got this for sure. Like, totally forgetting that on red team, there's Brock, who's like an actual professional athlete.
Yeah.
And when you see them do the tug of war, clearly Brock just won the whole thing single-handedly. Like, apparently without breaking a sweat. Like, just a great contrast between somebody who's an actual like trained professional athlete and people who just go to the gym. And the other thing that was really funny to me about how they show the tug of war playing out is Danny is like working his ass off, like he's on the same team as Brock, right? Danny's feet are barely touching the ground. He's basically like suspended in midair, like with his feet like flipping around like a cartoon character, while Brock is just effortlessly pulling him back. That was a good gag for me. The refs were also not doing a good job. They were not enforcing the rules with the baseball bat on the head and turning around. Terrible refereeing.
So I think that the refs was such a like an opportunity that fell flat. Like we didn't get much out of Sheena in her role as ref. She has not really been providing the stoking of the flame that I was hoping she would on her appearances this season. She's just kind of been like
Mm-hmm.
background noise. People like Lala have come in and given something, or Tom Schwartz especially has really like added to
Mm-hmm.
this season, but Sheena is just kind of there whenever she shows up, which is pretty disappointing for me.
Yeah, she was there in the middle of the table at El Coyote and didn't really say anything that we saw on camera.
Yeah, exactly. I also feel like this Jenna character that is being built up really didn't do much at this episode as well. Maybe we are just still building her character and we'll get some payoff later. But
Mm-hmm.
if this was like, if we have been building up this Jenna story to come to a head between like her and Michelle or whatever is supposed to happen, if this was supposedly the payoff, the fact that Jasmine asked her to be a referee and we got no fireworks, that's going to be kind of disappointing because like I think there is a lot of potential there. I would like to see what happens.
Yeah.
What do you think about how Janet was presented on this episode?
I think this episode was a definite loss for her in her war with Nia. The previous week, I liked what we saw from her, as we've discussed. I thought it came off more or less as a win in terms of having like a sustained attack with some like decent points made. This episode, I think it did not come off well. I think at the dinner, Nia was successfully able to come off looking as just like an aggrieved victim who's just being attacked and hasn't done anything to deserve it. I think it was a misplay, and I think Janet knows that, and I think that's why she eats crow when they're at the pool together. I think that's why she basically acknowledges that was a loss, and even lets Nia get a shot in, right? When Nia's like, "Oh, really? You were drunk that early in the evening?" And Janet just kind of like rolls over and takes it and is like, "Yeah, that's fair," or something. Like Janet recognized that she had to eat crow there, that she had to kind of accept a loss to be able to move forward. So I think that she knows that she misplayed that. I don't think the war's over. I hope it's not. But I think this round was a loss for Janet.
Yeah, I also think that she was doing way too much at this dinner. And
that's exactly what Jasmine said, right? She used the line, "She's doing too much," and I think that was the right read. Too much for the moment.
I think that it was smart for her to go and try to move forward with Nia. Like that feels like the right move to me. I think that she did she said the right things in that conversation to like get the ball rolling in that direction. But I'm interested in the little comment that she made at the end of that they let linger, where she's like, "Oh, I wouldn't have invited you on this trip." Like the fact that like they really stung that conversation like that is teasing that this is not over. So I'm excited for that. I am fully in the like Janet is a great reality TV personality camp. I agree this was not a good episode for her, but also I think like you got to take your punches when you're a reality TV star, and so her ability to kind of bounce back from this, I think, is going to be very indicative of what we can expect from her as a personality going forward.
Yeah, because there's not much runway left. If this confrontation's going to continue, we're going to get maybe one more flare up, and that's going to tell us a lot about what she's learned. Because I definitely hope we get at least a third season of her, because I'm sure she's watching her performance right now and taking notes going forward. Because I love to see that aggression from her. As I've said before, we need people who are stirring shit up, who are making attacks. I think she just didn't really pick the moment very well. But then again, you only have so many moments, so you got to take the ones when they're there. I think it would have been smarter if she had been able to go to Nia more beforehand to make it seem like she was getting aggrieved at something Nia was saying, where it felt like the attack was just kind of coming out of nowhere. The most charitable read of Janet's attack would be that she was deflecting off of Michelle, because Michelle kind of started that off with with her own misread where she decides to attack Kristen, and everybody's kind of like, what are you doing right now? Like, this is not a good moment to just start attacking Kristen. And then Janet kind of piggybacks on that. The most charitable read would be that Janet was like, I'll take the heat off of you, Michelle. I don't think that's what she was doing. I think she saw it as an opening to continue her sustained assault on Nia. And both Michelle and Janet ended up not looking good because it felt misplaced. But yeah, let's see how she wraps this conflict up, because she could still pull off a win, I think.
I think that if anything, this, and I don't think this was intentional, it has like made the sides very clear. We've got Janet and Michelle on one side, Kristen and Nia on the other. How well they're able to work together, I think, is really a question mark. I don't see how these personalities kind of fit together. It seems like a weird alignment. You know, these teams don't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, but they never really do on this show. Like all the alignments are weird on this show. I think it's part of its charm. It always feels like, what are you guys even doing together?
Yeah, the chemistry is like really strange. Like you see on shows like Real Housewives of New Jersey, where you've got like Jen Aiden and Teresa having just like fantastic chemistry together in terms of how they operate strategically. Here, this just like it doesn't really make sense. I don't see a lot of ability to kind of just for the right hand to know what the left hand is doing. It's really, really strange. Anything else strategically that stands out to you from this episode?
I know he doesn't reveal his sources, but why does Zach know about the engagement? What do you? Maybe he got a producer to tell him or something. I don't know. Though I will say I actually have found it more satisfying than I expected to have that kind of suspense element where it's like, will Luke succeed in keeping Kristen off the case? And will he succeed in making a proposal that's actually a surprise? I've actually found it very satisfying as like something to keep me riveted as we move towards the conclusion.
That's an interesting device.
Yeah, it might already be ruined by the dinner, right? The El Coyote dinner, that might have already ruined it, because that was, I mean, Jasmine kind of took the heat there, but it's not really on her because she apparently didn't know what the secret is. She was just told by Zach that there is a secret, which again is why Zach should not have given this information.
Yeah.
And then also Nia played that really badly afterwards too, where Nia's like, you're not supposed to say anything while she's sitting right next to Kristen. Like, man, that's not how you do it. That's so suspicious. She should have deflected and been like, oh yeah, the secret about the thing we're doing for Brittany, right? You know, that's how you deflect somebody off the case. But based on that, I think it's very likely that Kristen already knows, but I still enjoy that as a plot
I think
point.
Kristen knows as well. I think it's going to be played that she was surprised, but I think she knows. Just the little insert of the scene that we got where she's like asking about what she should, like how she should dress. And Luke is like, oh yeah, the girls want to take some cute photos. And she's like, okay, got it. Wear something cute. I think she definitely knows.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. And while we're on the subject, I did think that Kyle Chan got a good line in where Luke's like, hopefully I'm not coming back and returning it because she said no. And Kyle's like, it's a full carrot. She'll say yes.
Okay, so who are your stars from this episode?
You know, I'm going to have a bit of a hard time with this one because nobody really jumped off the page as having a great episode for me, I thought. I might give my first star to Jesse, not necessarily for anything he's done, but just kind of as we've discussed, the way he's been presented was like really entertaining. Like he's a really entertaining presence. And you know, that was at his house where they do that, the bro therapy session. So yeah, I'll give Jesse number one, I think, for an episode without anybody really leaping out at me. Beyond that, I'll give Janet number two because again, I thought she took a loss this episode, but she was the one doing the most. So I also give high marks just for doing stuff. and it's still, as we've been discussing, it's still fascinating just seeing how is she going to pull this off? Is she going to make a play? Because she's trying to shake things up. Unlike Nia, who isn't trying to do anything, she's just being there and trying to protect her image, right? Janet is willing to sacrifice her image to be somebody who's making shit happen, and that's what we want in a reality TV star. So I'll give Janet number 2, despite having an episode where she took an L. Number 3, man, who else was even really good in this? Honestly, let's give it to Luke. You know what? Luke's screen presence. Yeah, Luke's screen presence has gotten better and better too as the show is going on. Remember in early episodes, he was very awkward on camera. He was like getting red in the face, stammering a bit. He's really gained in confidence. He's really figuring out, I think, how to present himself on camera.
He still has the worst confessional look. His like shorts with his jacket is just anytime they pull out wide and he's got the shorts, because really awkward.
Because he crosses one leg over the other too, so it looks like you're like always a millimeter away from seeing testicle hair.
Yeah.
Not a good choice for the look. In real life would be a good look, but that's a standing up look. That is not a sitting down look. But they've been really selling pretty successfully the idea that improbably Luke and Kristen are like the most healthy couple on the show, which was not a development I would have seen coming in season 1. I've been kind of enjoying watching Luke. He's not like the most funny or interesting guy, but he's all right on camera. And again, that storyline has got me. I'm really interested to see whether or not Kristen can figure out that she's a few days away from becoming Mrs. Colorado.
I think your number 1 stars is bang on. I think Jesse is really interesting to watch. The treatment at the end that we got, like you said, the double exposure of him just kind of like stewing while we've got 2 lovers just enjoying life. Really, really good. I think there's a lot to look forward to in this conversation, or in that story. I think number 2, Janet, is a really good pick as well. Number 3, I might actually give it to Nia, just because I am compelled by her. I am interested to see what she is going to do. The fact that we got this confessional during the conversation at the pool where she's like, I don't know whether to trust whether Janet is genuine. The fact that she was ready to kind of go in on Janet while she was being a soft target. I'm interested to know whether she's going to hold on to this grudge, whether she's actually going to do something. I think this is a pivotal moment for her as a reality TV star. Are we going to see her actually go and do something, or are we going to see her just continue being kind of boring? I'm really curious to see what happens here. So I want to give her number 3. But you're right.
Actually credit to her for getting a cheap shot in while her opponent is vulnerable without setting off a new explosion. Sometimes you just got to know your moments to get a cheap shot in. And so credit to her for doing that.
Yeah, totally. I think that she was more interesting than Danny this episode. We got the scene during the bro down therapy session where they talk about they talk about his drinking. It's not the drinking, it's the hiding of the drinking. He just kind of rolls over and takes it, and I feel like he could have maybe done something there. He just refused to engage with that. Yeah. I would have preferred him to see him engage with it in some way, as opposed to just trying to get it over and done with sooner rather than later. I think Nia is more interesting than Danny right now, for me at least.
It is kind of funny to me how the douchebag whisperer just goes in on Danny harder than anybody else. With everybody else, he's like, yeah, bro, just say that somebody made you upset with your hand on their chest, and then your list is cleared. And then with Danny, he keeps going in, and he's like, okay, so do you sometimes specifically go to the bar and order 3 drinks and drink 2 and come back with 1? Well, I guess maybe that's probably have. And do you do that specifically because you're trying to hide the fact that you're drinking a lot? And he's like, why are you still going after me? They just dig out on him for some reason. That was kind of funny.
I also like how the way that Scott frames his therapy is very like you have to clear notifications on your phone. Like it's so like everything is framed within the context of Instagram. This
when the resentments stack on top of each other, that's called a list. Already you've mixed the metaphor. You're one sentence in and you've already mixed the metaphor. Still hope we see more of asshole Aristotle. He's amazing.
Okay, well, I think that about does it for the Valley. Let's indulge ourselves. Let's dive into Bravo Outsider Pass. Let's talk about our favorite episodes of Bravo Outsider. Dylan, do you want to just lead us off with your list?
We should do it back and forth. That's as somebody who's done a lot of list podcasts. Let me tell you how we. I think I'll do my number 5, then you do your number 5, then I do my number 4, etc. Yeah.
Okay.
Then we can lead our way up. And I'm really interested to see if we have any overlap at all, or if we pick completely 5 different episodes. No idea. We have not discussed this in advance, to be clear. We have not shown our hands to each other.
Obviously, we have not.
So I just want to say that, honestly, we've got some good shows out there. I think this exercise was really fun for me because it really did make me reflect, we have done some good shows. Not to fucking pat ourselves on our backs too much, but there is some pretty awesome stuff in the back catalog, and I had a good time going through there, and I had a hard time choosing these, narrowing it down. So a few honorable mentions quickly that I couldn't get on the list, but that I really wanted to. Our Oscars recap, our Oscars preview episodes that we've done 2 of, kind of a totally different animal from our regular shows, but those were so much fun that I kind of wanted to get at least one of them on there. Ended up not doing it. The one with Jenny Blaze was great, and I couldn't find room for that. One with David Arnold was also so good, couldn't find room for that. Yeah. And the one that I had the hardest time cutting from the list, I think, was when we had Will Sloan on to talk Vanderpump Rules in the Valley. Will Sloan, one of my favorite critics, and he was a great guest talking about the expanded Vanderverse. So lots of good stuff that I would have liked to have put on the list, but didn't make it there. But I'll start off with my number 5. I'm going to start with a recent one. The other ones, I'm digging a little deeper in the crates, but for number 5, I'm going to start off with one that was just a few weeks ago, episode number 96, May 27th, with Carson and Ezra from the Real Housewives
that was
North
a fantastic
Hollywood.
one.
Yeah. The second time we've had Carson on the show. We love the Real House Guest of North Hollywood. Great show, and they were so much fun to have on. We were talking the Summer House. We were talking Valley, season 2, episode 6, Summer House, season 9, episode 15. So again, just a few weeks ago, but we love going into the expanded Vanderverse. That's been a big part of our show. And they are just such great people to kind of meld minds with and trade opinions on these various characters and their universe and the way they're presented. And I just thought we had a lot of fun talking about those shows in that world with them. So that's one that cracks my list at number 5.
Yeah, that is a great pick. That is going to be one of my honorable mentions. I think that they are fantastic, and I just like the chemistry when we've got it on. I think my number 5 is a little bit of a deep cut, and I actually don't think that this is one of our best episodes, but it is one of my favorite episodes.
Minor distinction.
Yeah. Well, actually, because my audio sucks on this particular episode, it's a little bit awkward because we tried to do it live. It's the Roni reboot premiere episode that we did. We tried to do it live, which was a really fun experiment, but it ends up being a little awkward in terms of the structure of it. We had our friends Alistair and Michelle on, who were just really fun. The highlight of that episode, though, is our discussion of Ashley Darby's Coffee and Love. I think that just diving into that song, doing a deep dive on a song, is a lot of fun. We've done it before with Kim Zolciak's Google Me, but to do it with Coffee and Love was just a ton of fun, and the live element made it a lot of fun. So I'm saying how much fun it was. I'm not saying how great it was overall, but if you're going to check it out,
fun to watch
check out our discussion of Coffee and Love, because that is timeless. And it was exciting to also be speculating about who is going to emerge from this list of housewives that we knew nothing about, and then see them make their entrances. So just in general, it was a lot of fun to do that episode.
Yeah, that's a great pick. All right, moving on to number 4. My pick for number 4 is our 46th episode, the finale of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Season 4, the Monica season. Our guest was Andy Noble on that. We've had him a couple times, I think, Andy. Great guest. Lots of fun. Sandy was on that episode too. Longtime pseudo co-host Sandy Kloek. We had the gang together, me, you, Sandy, plus Andy. The episode itself was just one of the most spectacular episodes we've ever covered. So that was just a huge part of it. I think I originally wasn't going to do that one. I was at my sister's place. I was taking a break. And then I think, Craig, you texted me at one point after the episode aired, and you're like, okay, you got to see this. You got to see what the hell happened here. And that was one of like the best moments of our tenure of covering the Housewives shows, just like sitting down and watching that episode. I'd been into that season so far. I'd been really into Monica's arc, and then to get that explosive, spectacular twist made such a great episode. It was so well filmed, and it was so fun to talk about, to be with you guys, just breaking it down visually, breaking down the stakes, the questions of class, of in groups and out groups, and all this stuff that kind of came to the surface in this amazing episode. Talking about it with you guys was super fun. Like, just, I think the night after I watched it, I threw together my setup really quickly. I've never looked worse, I don't think, in any episode for the YouTube version. Doesn't matter. It was an amazing discussion about it. Just an incredible piece of TV. So that's why I got to get that one out there.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the first time we've had the same episode on our list. I don't have it at number 4. I've actually got that one a bit higher up, but you're right. Fantastic episode of television to watch. And I think that we just had a great time covering it. So many like insightful thoughts on how that episode is presented in there. Definitely one that is worth checking out if you're new to our podcast. What do you have at number 3?
Oh, you got to give me your 4.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So number 4, again, maybe not one of our best episodes, but one of the most fun ones for me to do was the Bravo Outsider Disappointing My Dad edition, when we had my dad and his friend Randy on, completely befuddled by the whole concept of what we are doing. It was just, it was really fun to have my dad on. Definitely wasn't changing hearts and minds there, but still really, really fun to force him to watch Real Housewives of Orange County and of Atlanta. We actually didn't get very good episodes to cover. I really wish that there was a bit more meat on the bones of the episodes that we were able to give them, but still had some really fun moments.
That's a great pick. I wasn't on that episode, and I've selfishly only picked episodes that I was on. But that one from the early days was super funny. Yeah. All right, moving on to number 3, we have another overlap here. I also picked I'm Wifing Here, our roadie reboot live episode, where we watched the episode live, and me and you wore suits for some reason. You're absolutely right. The quality was not good because we threw it together live. There's some bad audio, some dubious video too. Who cares? It was a blast. I think we laughed throughout the whole thing. We had a really good time. It was maybe the drunkest episode I've done too. I was drinking throughout it, and also eating a lot of cheese for some reason.
Right, yeah.
we had a great time, and we covered a lot of ground too. Had a lot of fun discussions, and like you say, we were discovering all these characters for the first time. So that was just super fun to just open a new box of characters and be like, what's inside here? Do that with a couple outsiders. This was one of our early episodes where we were still kind of having people who do not follow the Bravo universe on as guests kind of every week. And that was a great episode to have them on for. You mentioned that we're covering the Ashley Darby saga. We also did the taglines too. And that's always been one of my favorite activities is ranking and voting on the taglines when they come out for a new season. That was also on there. So yeah, we had so much fun on the Roni Reboots live show. So I put that at number 3, a little higher than you.
Oh, right on. So number 3 for me was, I don't remember which episode number it was, but we were covering the Vanderpump Rules finale of season 11, the OG send-off episode. And also it was the premiere of the most recent season of New Jersey. We had Tim on as a guest, and Tim, I don't know whether he actually watches the episodes that we have him on to talk about, but that's kind of part of the fun. He brings a true outsider's perspective to it. And that, again, is one of the most fantastic episodes of Vanderpump Rules that we have had the opportunity to cover. And that is saying something, because we've got to cover the final 2 seasons of OG Vanderpump Rules. And there have been some great episodes on there. And to get the breakdown of the fourth wall, watching that dissolve in front of our eyes, and having these characters as the larger than the construct personalities that they are, juxtaposed against the first appearances of them on camera, I thought was just really good. I'm getting chills thinking about it right now. Really, really great. Yeah, and to have someone along for the ride that has no idea who the fuck these people are or what they are talking about or anything, any context, was just kind of fun. So I really like that episode a lot.
Yeah, me too. We were so deep into Vanderpump Rules, and it was, like you said, so fun to have me and you who have been like bathing in this, unpacking this for such a long time, and then have a funny guy along from the ride who's kind of like, I don't know what's going on. But just riffing. But that's a great pick. That's a great pick for number 3. Okay, I'm going to move on to number 2, and I'm digging even deeper into the archives, a little further back. Our 14th episode, back on May 12th, 2023, with Rory Fallis. I think this was the first time we had Rory on. We've had him with us a few times. Rory's been a great guest over the years, over the first 100 years of the show. This was an episode where we covered 3 shows. We covered Vanderpump Rules, which was season 10 was getting close to the end. New Jersey, season 13 was getting close to the end. Another show which feels kind of canonical in Bravo Outsider history. I feel like if there's 2 shows that are the most that have been the most important to the Bravo Outsider identity, it's probably been Vanderpump Rules and Real Housewives of New Jersey. We also covered the Atlanta season premiere. So we had 3 shows. But the real reason why I'm picking this episode isn't because of the shows we covered. It's because we had a really good discussion about the idea of authorship off the bat. I rewatched recently and was like, damn, that's actually really good. In some of our early episodes, for those of you who haven't been following us from the beginning, we occasionally did a little bit more like seminar kind of stuff where we would do like a round table where we would introduce a discussion related to reality TV and kind of break it down. We moved away for that kind of for a reason. Like I think we've made the show a little more snappy and more focused on just the recap since the show's evolved over the years. That's good. That's what it should do. But it revisiting those early episodes where we got into some more like critical theory stuff, like unpacking the way these shows interact with reality as a medium, it was really fun. And we had a really interesting discussion about labor rights too, because the writer's strike had just been announced, which was kind of the jumping off point, about like death of the author theory and like who is the author of reality TV. And I was literally wearing a black turtleneck, so it's like for probably most of our audience, it was just like boring as hell. But I thought we had a really interesting discussion. A number of those early episodes where we did the round tables, we had some very interesting discussions. That's the one that I decided to pick up as maybe my favorite of them. So that's why I'm including it at number 2.
Yeah, that's a good pick. And I remember having a really good conversation with with Rory about characters within Real Housewives of New Jersey. Like you said, this was the first time we had Rory on, so he didn't have any real context about Bravo or the docu-soap genre at all, and having him dive into Real Housewives of New Jersey, and it opens up with Jen Fessler's mom and aunt, the twins, and just like diving into these like wacky characters that were the first exposure to the genre for him. Having that conversation having that as a launching point for the conversation about Real Housewives of New Jersey was really good. So yeah, that was a really fun one.
Yeah. What you got it to?
Number 2, I had, like I said, the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City finale discussion that we had with Andy and Sandra and yourself. Again, won't dive back into it, but yeah, that was my number 2 pick.
All right, number 1. I did debate this a little bit, but I felt like number 1 had to be a Scandival episode. Like Scandival was just a huge event in the period of shows that we've covered. And it casts such a huge shadow over our shows. We've talked about it so much, and we've unpacked so many parts of it from so many angles. Ultimately, I had to go with the Bravo Outsider Special Vanderpump Units episode 3, which we called online the defense of Raquel Leviss, which was kind of the culmination of our unpacking of Scandival at the end of season 10. We broke up our coverage of the multi-part reunion into 3 episodes with special guests. We had 3 or 4 Rorys. Can't quite remember. But in part 3, our guest was Sean O'Rourke, another guy who's been on the show a lot, who we love having on the show, who always brings a lot of really interesting perspectives. Always funny to joke around with, too. So I think maybe parts 1 and 2 of what we call the Special Vanderpump Unit, Bravo Outsider SVU, 1 and 2 were maybe funnier. Like they might have had more like jokes. Like we got a lot of good jokes during those episodes. But episode 3 was the one where we really kind of all crystallized around a cause, which was that what I'd been pushing for a long time, which is that we got to defend Raquel, or now known as Rachel, because we could shudder to remember about what the dialogue was in those days, and how it was seen as totally justified to have her on camera and have much older people saying that she should be raped with a cheese grater or whatever hell awful things they were saying. And by the time we got to that specific episode on June 8th, 2023, our 19th episode, we had really kind of rallied around a common cause, and we really unpacked why we thought Rachel deserved a more sympathetic read, and why this attacking of her was this toxic storm that had been created by this whole environment, by this whole melding of the show and the audience and the fandom and all this stuff. And since that felt like the capstone on our Scandival coverage, that kind of had to be my number 1.
Yeah, that is a great pick. The Special Vanderpump Unit episodes were on my list of honorable mentions, which I'll get into after our picks. But I remember like the context leading up to that final part of the reunion was like, you have to see the last 5 minutes of this episode. Like you have to see what we caught on camera. And what they caught on camera was this confessional from Raquel where she's like breaking down, and the discussion that we had about that like final 5 minutes I thought was really good, because there was so many different ways to interpret what it was saying. Like I remember you talking about like, is it an exercise in sadism? Are we just being presented with like, see, you're right, she is awful, she is the devil? Or is it presenting this idea that, Raquel is being manipulated and a victim here? And I think that they left that as an open-ended question, even though the majority of the fan base read it as she is a monster. And yeah, it was a really interesting question that I think that final 5 minutes posed, and the discussion around that was really good.
Absolutely. All right, so now we're down to the last one. What's your number 1 then? Now I'm really curious.
Yeah, so my number one episode is actually one that you mentioned in your honorable mentions. It was our episode that we had Will Sloan on.
Oh,
That was
nice.
just a really fun episode to do. Will, he had the vocabulary for critiquing film, and that lends itself really well to the format, but he also had the context on Vanderpump Rules and was able to dive like really deep into it. So I thought that that was like had really good discussion. We really got into the Joe and Schwartz relationship talk, which is a really interesting piece to Vanderpump Rules that didn't revolve around Raquel, and like Scandival overshadowed pretty much everything within the last 2 seasons of Vanderpump Rules. So getting like a little, being able to dive into other characters, I thought was really good. And Joe was a really interesting character that we met late within Vanderpump Rules. So I like that. We also got breaking news on that episode because we found out live that OJ Simpson had died.
Rest in peace, King.
I think it was a great episode. So that was my number one pick. I do want to give some honorable mentions that I couldn't find a place for. One of them was the Christmas special that we did. You had some technical issues, but when you were able to join, we had some good conversation on that. We talked about the Berserkshires episode of Roni. It was a lot of fun to dive into more OG Roni content because we haven't had the opportunity to discuss that. I thought that Sandra had a great like identification of the theme of ghosts and like the haunted feeling that we get because it was a Christmas episode, and ghost stories and Christmas is something that like really does actually go hand in hand. And the feeling of those episodes of these housewives kind of wandering from room to room, haunting this mansion. It was really fun to explore that. I really like that. It was just a lot of fun to talk about a themed episode. So that was an honorable mention. Another honorable mention is when we had Comrade Britt on from Soy Track. I just liked that one a lot because got to dive into some Star Trek and compare that to the docu-soap genre and the archetypes. So exploring that idea, I thought was really fun. And you mentioned we had a pretty good run where we had David Arnold on. We had Will Sloan on. We also had Vanderpump Robs on. That was a really fantastic episode. Definitely go back and check that one out on YouTube. I got super sick after we aired that episode, so we don't have any clips of it on the Instagram, which I still feel guilty about. But yeah, a great discussion with him as well.
Another awesome guest that I think we haven't mentioned yet was Jenna Claus from the account Didi My Doty. That was a really good one too. She was super insightful.
Yeah, she was great. Yeah, we've had some fantastic guests. There's like really too many to mention, but yeah, she was fantastic as well. All right, anything else before we move on to our stars from Bravo Outsider Past?
No, we covered a lot of ground there.
All right. So let's go back and forth again. Who is your number 3?
All right. So for my third star, so right off the bat, I'm going to say I'm only picking one person per show. I'm not doing repeats from the same show. I decided that that's probably the best way forward. I had to get in somebody from New Jersey. Like I mentioned, after Vanderpump Rules, that kind of feels like the show that we've gone the most in depth on, and we've covered 2 great seasons of New Jersey. There are so many good candidates in the seasons we've covered, but ultimately, I'm going with my number 3 star from the first 100 episodes of Bravo Outsider, somebody who longtime listeners of the show know I love, Jennifer Aiden. That's the one. That's the one I'm picking out of the New Jersey cast. I've had so much fun watching her, talking about her over the episodes. Her sense of humor, her frantic energy, her drawing skills, her imitations, and her strategies, her gamesmanship. I've just had a blast watching her and discussing her over the years. And I could have picked so many people. I could have picked Teresa, of course. I could have picked Danielle, who just kicked down the door with 2 amazing debut seasons. I could have picked Louis, who was also somebody we've had so much fun discussing over the years. But ultimately,
Margaret as well.
Margaret, absolutely. So many choices on that show. But man, I've loved those 2 seasons from Jen Aiden. If we actually tabulated the number of stars that we've given over the years, she probably would be in the top 3 of the most stars I've handed out, because I've given a lot to her over the episodes we've covered. So I'm putting her in at number 3.
Yeah. So number 3 for me is Jennifer Aiden. I also wanted to pick someone from New Jersey. Yeah. And yeah, she seemed like the best one there. I think to give it to, I think you're right. You could give this to many people, but we just get such well-rounded performances out of Jen Aiden. And she has more flexibility than someone like Teresa because, you know, she can operate as a free agent as well. I think she is one of the most interesting people to watch strategically. She's really funny. Yeah. So she's fantastic. One of my favorites on that show as well. So
hell yeah.
Really funny that we both landed on her.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Okay, so number 2.
Number 2. So this might be controversial, but for my number 2, I am going to go with a one and done. I'm not going to go with an established star. I'm going to go with somebody who only did 1 season. And just based on that, you might already be guessing where I'm going with that. I got to go with Darth Monica Garcia.
All right, Monica.
AKA
let's go.
Reality Von Tease. Just that episode that we covered, that finale of Salt Lake City, as I've mentioned, was such a great moment, but it was also a great twist on what had already been a fascinating season for her. Like, I was already so interested in the way that she awkwardly fit into that group, her resentments, her attempts to be friends with them, her sensibility about not being as wealthy as the other woman. All that stuff was already very interesting when she was just appearing as somebody who got cast on the show. And then when we got that crazy Shyamalan twist that she was this super villain who had infiltrated the show, it not only made for one of the best episodes of TV I've ever seen, it made her character retroactively that much more fascinating. And it was also interesting to me, and we had so much fun talking about it too. There are so many interesting questions swirling around it that I got to put Monica as my number 2 star of all the episodes we've covered.
Wow. So I also had Monica as my number 2 here.
Oh man, we're lockstep.
Yeah. For all the reason you mentioned, she had such a compelling season even before that finale. Like the stuff about her overextending herself financially in order to buy a handbag so that she could fit in with this group was just like really like fascinating and compelling. She also had this complicated history with her family and the church. And so there was just so much that was really compelling to watch about her. And then, like you said, we get the big reveal at the end. It adds so much color to her story. And we also got her falling a little flat, but trying to do something at the reunion. I just think that it was such a great season for her. She was really amazing to watch. So yeah, I am fully on board with Monica at the number 2 pick. Who do you got at number 1? I'm sure that we have at least a little bit of overlap here.
All right. So number 1, now I'm starting to wonder if we have the exact same top 3. Let's find out. Okay. And number 1, people familiar with the show might see where this is going, but it came down to one of 2 people.
Should really we say it at the same time?
Okay, I'm interested because honestly, I debated which person to put because it had to be one of the 2. So let's do it. Okay. Yeah. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3.
Tom Sandoval.
Rachel. Oh, you do it with Tom. I went with Rachel.
I know. To be completely honest, I had Tom Sandoval / Rachel as my number 1 on my notes, but last minute decision to go Tom Sandoval if I could only pick one.
I basically the same thing, but my last minute decision was to go with Rachel. It is an interesting debate because, Sandoval has been the thing that we've covered the most and that we've gotten the most in depth on because we found it so fascinating from so many angles. I was considering going with Sandoval mostly because we had 2 seasons of him that we covered since he was in season 10 and the really the focus of season 11 where Rachel was not. Ultimately, I went with Rachel partially because she became the ultimate object of fascination for us, especially in those reunion episodes, like I mentioned, that I put as my favorite ones that we've done. But also just the fact that it was so unexpected for me that she would become such an object of fascination for me. That's kind of the thing that really made me see her as the number one star. Like when season 10 started, we originally weren't even going to cover it, right? Like originally, even though we're both big Vanderpump Rules heads, we were like, the show's kind of moribund at this point. And when the first episode like had Rachel featured fairly prominently, I was like, oh man, they're like really grasping at straws here. Like I think I made some joke like, oh, what's the storyline going to be with her? Has Rachel developed object permanence? Like, oh, like what? We're really gonna turn like boring, dumb Raquel into like a central character. And the fact that she went from somebody who I saw that way as like the most uninteresting peripheral character to like the most fascinating figure in the universe just really sells how much the study of Rachel, the Rachology of the show has been such a big part of its DNA and has been such a revelation. So that's why I ultimately had to go with her, even though Sandoval too has been insanely fascinating. But for different reasons. I think if the fascinating thing about Rachel is that she moved from being a TV object to being a fully fleshed out human, Sandoval is almost the opposite. He kind of went from being a human to being a pure TV object. You know, we've talked to the show before about like that New York Times review article where like Sandoval is where they say Sandoval is apparently like taping over the ceiling lights and stopping talking when planes go overhead, even when he's not in the middle of filming a show. Like he has become a being of television, which is also super fascinating. But it's almost like the alternate trajectory from what Rachel's taken to become kind of a complicated, interesting human in our eyes.
Yeah, and you're right. Like right from the very beginning of this show, I think episode 1 that we did, don't go back and listen to it. There's a reason it's not on our our top list. But we do like that was when season 10 of Vanderpump Rules premiered, and like I'd watch it. I'm like, we're not going to cover this. Just want to call out that this is something that has happened on TV. There's like Raquel, for whatever reason, gets introduced with this like bad bitch WWE walk-up music when she arrives at this pool party. It's like Vanderpump Rules is so done. It is so dead. You know, the last good season of Vanderpump Rules is season 7 or whatever. And then for it to turn into the best show on television that season was fascinating. And Raquel, I think even if you take away the scandal, like that's another thing that's similar to Monica, that you know this reveal doesn't happen within the text of that season, but the text of the season is like altered based on how the audience is engaging with that show. Just really, really fascinating what the actual text of her arc was. Like this idea of her like turning into this supervillain and this like this physical like medallion, this lightning bolt necklace that she gets put over her head. It's just like such an interesting arc in season 10. Ultimately, I made the decision to go with Tom Sandoval because like you said, he has had a almost inverted trajectory in terms of like how we engage with him as a character. But I thought that we did have we had an interesting story. Like we obviously were very engaged with his story in season 10, but also he was the most engaging thing about season 11.
Yeah.
This idea of him, like what he views his story as and how that was articulated on the screen, I think was so compelling. We got so many little moments of symbolism. We got that great shot, that sweeping pull up from him crucified on a rock, and how he's like presenting himself as this martyr. We got the conversation between him and Schwartz about Alcatraz, like just all these like little moments of him that are showing us as an audience how he views his journey and his struggle, and how he views himself as this like martyr for Vanderpump Rules, or having endured this great challenge. I just like thought that he had such a rich season 11, and season was such a catalyst for season 10. I think that just puts him over the top. I think he has become like one of the most recognizable faces on Bravo, when he was at risk of kind of falling into obscurity. Like, I don't think that people made the association between Tom Sandoval and Vanderpump Rules as strongly as they do today. You know, if Sandoval had never happened, if the show would have ended after season 9.
Yeah, not well put.
Yeah, that was a great look back on memory lane. Do you have any resolutions or any hopes and dreams for the next 100 episodes?
Man, all I can say is I'm going to keep on wifing.
That is a great place to end it. You know what? Actually, I would like to bring back the roundtable discussions that we had.
Yeah.
That'd be one thing that I would like to do. Maybe not every episode, but we should do that. But yeah, it's been a fun 100.
Absolutely. Here's to the next 1,000. Decided to get ambitious there.
Yeah. All right. Well, keep on wifing.